Alright, what's up guys? Let's just get this started. I want to do a little quick tutorial. I'm trying to fix this paint chip right here. Happened to me a while ago. I was painting the engine bay and I masked it out. And when I went to peel the tape, it actually lifted the paint because when I was painting the car, I didn't prep this area well. There are a few ways to go about fixing this, and I feel like a lot of people assume right off the bat that drastic measures have to be taken and you gotta repaint the whole fender, or I don't know. To me this is just devastating because I painted the car myself, so if something like this happens, I'm literally ready to repaint the whole car. If you're in that type of mindset, then this video is for you. I was even thinking of fixing this with like a airbrush and stuff like that, but then I realized, you know what, might as well do this with as little amount of tools as possible that you could have and still get a perfect result. The idea comes from this. I'm gonna get a bit philosophical, but whatever. Imagine you're at a museum and there's a really antique car, and unfortunately an accident happens, someone drops something on the car and you get a paint chip. How would you go about fixing that? Are you gonna sand it down and repaint the whole panel? I doubt that, because the car is an antique. What you're most likely gonna do is you're gonna call an expert who's gonna come and he's gonna work that chip, and after he's done, that chip is going to be gone and you can't even tell the difference. So that's the approach I'm going to take. It's going to require a little bit more time and the results are not always perfect, but if you put in your effort, it'll look good. I'm going to explain why this isn't done at body shops. When you go to a body shop and you present them with something like this, they're just gonna say, dude, I'm gonna repaint the whole fender. They're gonna R&I, remove and install all this stuff, and they're gonna mask off everything, and they're just gonna buzz this down, make it smooth, and then repaint the whole fender and wipe their hands clean. My issue with that is that sometimes when you paint a car in different conditions, with different temperatures, the color stands out and it's different, and one panel will look newer than the other, or you're using a different spray gun and the spray pattern's different. There are a lot of things, so when I look at my car, I don't want to have that difference. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and fix that and walk you guys through the steps of how you could potentially fix something like this on a car that you love. Let me just explain how we're going to be doing this. I'm going to be using simple tools. Here, let me show you the tools that I have. I'm just going to be using one of these brushes. It's a brush that you can get at Harbor Freight or any paint store. It's really one of the crappiest ones you could get. Some painter's tape, razor blade, some super glue, some pencils with erasers, and 400 or 600 grit sandpaper. There are going to be other stuff too as we go along, like lacquer thinner. You're definitely going to need some lacquer thinner, and you're going to need your paint that you're going to use to touch it up. This is single stage, but you could use the same thing with two stage, which is the base coat, and it comes with clear coat. The only difference is that I'm gonna put a few layers down of my single stage, and with the base coat, clear coat, what you want to do is you just want to put one layer of that base coat, maybe 2 layers, just to get the color real nice. You're trying not to build up the paint, you're just trying to get the pigment in there, and you're going to build it up with a clear coat instead. the idea here is to fill in everything and more, and then sand it down until it's all even, and then you're gonna buff it out. It's not that hard. If you just imagine a pit in the ground, and then you just fill in that pit. Like here, I'll draw you a picture. If you've got a pit, what you do is you fill that pit with new paint, and you're gonna fill in a little bit more, like this. And then when you sand this down, you want to sand it flat. So what you'll end up with is just a filled in pit. What you're going to be looking at is going to be just the surface area. So your eye isn't even going to know that this pit has been filled in. That's the goal. So if you guys want to find out how I do this, I'm going to try to be as thorough as possible, so check it out. Okay, I'm going to do something else. I'm going to put a couple of other cameras on here, just so that it's a little bit easier to see for you guys, and I could switch between the cameras. So, alright. So, I haven't turned on the other cameras yet. I'm just going to explain what I'm doing with these pencils. I'm going to take my razor blade, I'm going to open this guy up, and since these erasers are used, I'm going to cut a straight line right down so that I have a good flat mating surface. That's one. There's two. And this is the third one right here. What's going to happen is I'm going to take this, I'm going to cut little circles. I'm going to use super glue, and I'm going to glue those circles onto the back of this. That's what it looks like. Got 3 pencils with sandpaper on them. So there we go. So what I did there was I sanded around the perimeter, try to break down the edge as much as I could, so if I go around I can feel a definitive edge, but it's not as harsh, so it's smooth, and I created that concave hole. I did go a bit deep and I hit metal, and every time you hit metal you want to make sure you put on some etching, self-etching primer so that it doesn't rust. The next step is going to be, we're going to have to get a nice layer of lacquer thinner. So you take some lacquer thinner, you take a Q-tip, and you clean out the whole area. So we'll do that. That's pretty much prepping it. You have to use the lacquer thinner because what it essentially does is melt the layer of paint underneath and preps for a new layer to be added on there. So we're gonna do the lacquer thinner first, then we're gonna put on some self-etching primer. After the self-etching primer, we're gonna build up layers of paint. So let's get this started. And a little bit goes a long way, you don't have to put a lot. As long as you put it all over the metal right here, it should be good. And you just want to tap it on there. I let it dry out for a couple of hours. So the next step is going to be getting your paint ready and layering it on here. Alright, I'm mixing my paint, and after I mix it up I'll show you what you're going to do with your brush. Just going to trim it a little bit in order to make it easier. Okay, so I'm going to do it right here. Alright, so this is the brush that I'm going to be using, and I'm going to take off a little bit of these fibers right here. Take a razor blade. Alright, so here you go. That's what I'm going to be using. I'm just going to be dabbing the paint on there. So let's do this. Alright guys, I got my second layer on. It's pretty dry right now, and as usual I'm having camera issues. That one's full, that one's battery's dead, so just bear with me. I'm gonna add my third coat, and then I'm gonna let this car sit for a few days, get it nice and cured, and I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna sand it out. So this is gonna be my last coat, and I'm gonna let this sit for a few days. So here we go. It's been about a week of the paint drying outside. I left it out in the sun. As you can see, the car is filthy. It's been parked under trees. You just want to let nature do its course. The first few hours I covered it. You could just put a box over it or make something to cover it from dust settling into the paint. Then after, if it's dry to the touch, you're good to go and park the car outside or drive it around. Let a week go by at least. If you want more, then more is fine, but now that the paint is actually dried, we're going to move to the next phase, which is going to be bringing it down, sanding it, and making it level with the rest of the surface. I'm going to go over some of the supplies that we need. Anyway, just get this stuff. Regular painter's tape, and then I have all kinds of sandpaper over here, ranging from 800 grit all the way to 2500. Razor blades and blocks. These are very important. You want to make sure that you're using some type of a block when you're sanding, because you don't want to put your finger marks into the paint. You might think that you're keeping it flat, but there's just no way that you're going to. So you have to use a block. If you want to use other types of blocks, you could use like stuff laying around the house, make sure it's really nice and flat. Alright guys, I'm gonna put another camera right over here so you can see what I'm doing better. And let's get this going. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try and work this surface down. I'm going to use different methods to do that, but first things first, I'm going to try and protect the paint around it, because as I'm working this down, I don't want to be working any of the paint down that's already on the car, because that's already pretty thin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this painter's tape and I'm going to paint basically an edge all the way around where I added the touch-up, and because I already know the area I touched up is higher, when I start sanding this, if I run into the tape, then I'll be safe. It'll be my runoff space rather than running off into this and accidentally working it down with some tape. And this is another method. You want to like get some lint on there so it's not as abrasive, so it doesn't lift up any paint as you're putting the tape on there. So there you go. I'm just gonna go around it. All the way around where I've added the touch-up on the edges. So this is going to ensure that when I work this surface, I'm not going to burn the sides. So let's get started. So what I'm doing is I'm taking a razor blade and I'm shaving the top layers off. You don't have to do this. You can hit it with sandpaper if you're not confident, but this is not that hard. You just take it and make sure it's nice and flat and move it along the surface without stopping. Alright guys, I've basically knocked this down as much as I could. Now it's time to take off the tape and basically wet sand everything to the outside so that I get a nice nice and flat surface. Make sure that you guys, whatever you're doing, you're using a hard block. So next step is going to be taking this tape off and sanding everything down to get a nice and flat surface. And then we're going to go ahead and buff everything out. Now that I've sanded it, it's time to go over it with some buffing compound and get this thing to come out to a shine. I went from 800 all the way to 2500 when sanding this down, and I kind of sand it all around here, 20 with 2500 just to prep it to get a nice buff out of it so everything will be consistent. I'm going to start buffing this out by hand first, and then I'll move to an actual buffing tool. As you can see, I'm not sanding or I'm not buffing in that one particular location. I'm buffing all the way around it, and that's because I don't want to concentrate on that one area and burn a hole or go deep into that one location. I'm trying to pretend that this is no longer just this, it's all of this. So I'm treating it as a whole panel now. I'm ignoring that this even exists, because to me this is almost pretty much out. Now that I buff it real nice, I'm pretty sure it's just gonna come out and we're not even gonna see it. So just keep buffing, just keep buffing. Like that, ladies and gentlemen, the chip is fixed. Check it out. It's like it never even happened. It's a really long process. This took me a while, about 2.5 weeks. It takes time, you know, but if you want, you can get the results like these. And as you can see, the chip is no longer there. It is down. Let me zoom in so you can see. Alright, let's zoom in. No more chip. Would you look at that? Amazing. It's like nothing ever happened. Now it's time to clean this. Alright, if you guys are wondering what kind of compounds I just use these simple Harbor Freight ones, and there's 3 steps, A, B, and C, and it goes from really coarse to really fine. I'm going to throw on a coat of wax after this and, you know, give a car a nice wash. And yeah, there you go. That's how you fix a chip. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. See y'all next time.